Good morning and welcome to day 4 of our morning mindset and awareness series. Today we're going to start to integrate some of the lessons that we've already had, and we're really focusing in on how to improve our quality of movement, the enjoyment of the movement, how we make it more smooth and more elegant. And we're going to be focusing in on 3 key principles. One is becoming more biologically fit. And what I mean by that is to be able to respond to anything within our environment without hesitation and preparation. And so that requires a keen sense of how we organize ourselves. And so the amount of effort that we need in order to do any type of movement is directly proportional to how we find support from the surface we're on. And we're also going to be looking at how we leverage our skeleton as a counterbalance for rolling. So the movement that we're going to be looking at today is rolling, and so rolling gives us a great opportunity to start to look at how we begin to find counterbalance, how we find the support from the floor as we roll our rib cage and body over it, and how we become more biologically fit so that if we ever trip and fall, we can organize ourselves in a way where we roll into the ground versus falling into the ground. So I'm looking forward today. I love these types of lessons, getting on the floor and beginning to roll and play around. So let's get started. To begin, please come to lie on your back. Find out how you settle onto your mat and notice how the ground comes up to support you. How you and the floor may begin to have a conversation. Notice how you take an inhale. What's the path of the breath, maybe through your nostrils, into the back of your throat, down into your lungs. And how do you sense the movement of the breath into the belly, maybe down into the diaphragm? Maybe you notice more of the breath going into the chest or into the lateral ribs. Where is it that you follow your breath? Notice the small changes in the contact with the floor as you inhale and exhale. And begin to sense the length of your spine, the length of each leg, and the length of each arm. If you had to choose one leg being slightly longer than the other, which heel would be slightly longer away from the top of your head? Which finger has the longest distance between the top of the skull and the fingertip? So lying on your back, if you had to roll to immediately get up, which direction would be most available? Would you more easily be available to roll to the right or to the left? And please roll to your right side. Pause and examine as you come onto your right side. How did you make this movement? What was the cascade of events that took place? And then please return to your back. And now roll to your left side. Pause and examine here. And how did you make this movement? So compare the movement of rolling onto your right side and rolling onto your left side. What was similar? What was different? Which direction felt smoother? As you rolled to your right, at what point did your head begin to roll with you? And as you rolled to the left, at what point did the head become involved? Which side was quicker? Was there a brief hesitation to one side versus the other? So we begin to become aware of these hidden preferences that we have within ourselves. And there's secrets that if we examine closely, even the contact with the floor begins to give us subtle hints about our preferences, about the way we're organized on the floor, and how that in itself begins to shape the direction that we begin to move. And please come to lie so that you make a small X-shaped pattern. So you spread your arms overhead and your legs a little wide. And begin to slide your left arm toward the right over your head. So as you slide the arm, you keep the back of your hand on the floor. And do this in a series of steps. So you begin to slide a little, come back. Begin to slide a little more, come back. And begin to slide your left leg towards your right. So now you're sliding both your left arm and your left leg to the right. As you go past the midline, where does your left elbow begin to lift? Where does your left knee begin to bend to move to the right? As you initiate the movement, where do you initiate the movement from? Do you begin to roll over top of yourself? And as you're moving with both the left side of the leg and the left arm, which limb initiates the movement? Do you begin by moving the arm or the leg? So you continue to slide the left arm, the left leg to the right. And as you move towards rolling onto your right side, you can, so that the right elbow and the right knee begin to bend toward each other. So begin to explore from the X-shaped pattern, sliding the left leg and left arm over past midline to the right, beginning to roll over onto your right side. So you explore how you can come to rest with one knee on top of the other and one elbow on top of the other on your right side. And then come back, lengthening the left leg and the left arm so that you come back onto your back into the X-shaped pattern that you began with. So you begin to slide the left arm and left leg as your right arm and right knee begin to bend toward each other. How do you do this? How do you initiate this movement? How do you begin to coordinate both the arms and the legs? As your left side rolls to the right, your right side begins to help become the weight for the movement, so that you begin to pull your right arm and right knee in towards themselves to begin to use that as a weight to help begin to move the left side over to the right. And then return to your back. You're only rolling to the right for the moment. And then come back to your back and rest for a moment. And as you rest there, notice if there's any subtle change in the quality and the relationship of the way the back is in contact with the floor. And before you tuned into your breath and you noticed the subtle changes in the contact with the ribs against the floor. You may notice that there's a slight change in the quality of your breath, the way your breath comes into the nostrils or down the back of the throat. So return to the X-shaped pattern. Begin to bend your right elbow and knee toward each other to roll to your right. Your right elbow and knee stay on the floor and you begin to roll to the right. And notice, how does your left arm and leg join the movement? So there's this weighted pulling to the right and you come back. So how does this organization begin to change the way you make the movement? So instead of initiating from the left side, we are now initiating by moving the right leg and arm. And how is this sense of having this weight roll to the right? As you begin to explore this, you started by pulling your right knee and elbow toward each other. How and when does the left side come over? Come onto your back, lengthening the left arm and leg. When can you lengthen to the right side? Now, start sliding the left arm and left leg to the right. And when does the right side begin to roll? How do you develop a pattern of breathing in one direction and exhaling to the other direction? How do you find the support from the ground? How do you use the contact of the ground? What part of the rib cage do you begin to roll over? Do you find yourself holding your breath as you make the movement? Go ahead and give yourself a rest. Come to lie on your back. And what's your relationship between your left ribs and your right ribs? What's the quality of your breathing now? You may notice a quieting of the mental chatter that's happening, or was happening at the beginning of the lesson. And then begin with the X-shaped pattern again. And then start the movement to roll and weight to the left by pulling your left elbow and knee and pulling them together toward each other. And notice, how does the right arm and the right leg begin to partake in this movement to come onto your left side? Where is it that as you begin to sweep your right hand overhead, when does the elbow begin to bend? And when do you start to notice a bend in the right knee? And at what point does your head begin to turn? So continue with this movement, folding, rolling onto your left side, and then taking the right arm and leg back to the right. And keep doing this movement to the left, and a few times initiate the movement by pulling your left elbow and knee towards each other. Notice, as you come onto your left side, is your right leg and knee behind your left, on top, in front? Where do you choose to place both the left and the right? And as you continue to move, the next few times, start the movement by sliding your right arm and the right leg to the left. And at what point does your right elbow begin to bend? Which of the two begins to lead the movement? Does one initiate the movement before the other? And which one comes to stop and rest first? So you can begin to play with the timing here. When does your left knee and elbow bend to roll? When does your head begin to turn? What is the sequence? What is the timing of events? The cascading of the motor plan. So you can start with the left or the right and then come back onto your back and rest. And now notice how you sense the contact with the floor. What's the quality of your breathing now? What's your sense of ease to begin to roll onto your left or roll onto the right? All right. So lying on your back, X-shaped pattern, begin to pull your right knee and elbow toward each other and have your left follow. So you begin to roll onto your right. And then come back onto your back and then begin to lengthen your left arm and your left leg to come onto your back. So in your X-shaped pattern, begin to pull your right knee and elbow toward each other and have your left follow. And then come onto your back, lengthening your left side, so your left arm and your left leg. As you continue onto your back, continue to pull the left elbow and knee toward each other and allow your right to follow towards your left. And then lengthen your right back onto your back. And continue this movement of rolling to the right side, rolling to the left side. And begin to quickly pull your right knee and right elbow together, and then quickly come onto your right side. And then slowly come back onto your back, and then quickly roll onto your left side by pulling in the elbow and the knee, and then slowly roll back onto your back. And so play around with this for a moment. Quickly rolling onto your side, and then gently opening, lengthening back. Then pause for a moment and begin to roll to your right side by starting with your left arm and leg sliding on the floor to the right to come onto your right side. Then lengthening to come back onto your back, and continue to make this movement with the right arm and right leg to the left to come onto your side and then come back. And then quickly do this movement. So you quickly slide the left leg and the left arm across your body to the right, come onto your right side, slowly slide back, and then quickly bring your right arm and your right leg over to the left to come onto your left side, and then slowly come back. All right, pause for a moment. Return to the space that's neither to the right nor to the left. Begin to roll to your right in whichever pattern you choose and come onto your back and have your arms and legs always in movement. How do you coordinate this movement now? What is the timing, the sequence? What ones bend, which ones lengthen? How do you begin to develop a rhythm? Taking the weight from one side to the other. Good. Leave it and rest on your back. And tune into the quality of the relationship with the floor now. What can you sense may have changed with this relationship? The quality of the contact, the gentleness of the contact. Maybe the ground feels a little softer, more inviting. Maybe you notice that there's more of you in contact with the floor, that there's been a softening of the rib cage and the erectors of the back muscles. So now at the end, take a moment to just examine if you were to begin to roll to the right or to the left. Is there some more availability? Some more capability to be able to roll one way or the next? And when you're ready, please come up to standing. And note, did you roll onto your side using one of the strategies that we just practiced? Which one did you choose? How did you choose it? Were you aware of how you came up? So these are the questions that you can begin to ask yourself throughout your day to bring more awareness into how you begin to go about making movements throughout your day. And now up and standing, take a moment, begin to rotate a little to the right, a little to the left. Continue the rotation as if to turn and look over your right shoulder and turn and look over the left shoulder. And how it changes as you turn to the left, you begin to lift the right heel. And as you turn to the right, you begin to lift the left heel. So you begin to involve more of the whole of yourself in this movement. Your head, your neck, your eyes, your spine, your hips, all the way down into your heels. And notice how you shift the weight through your feet. All right. So we'll pause there. So I hope you enjoyed the lessons today. There's something about just being able to roll on the ground that brings me right back to childhood. And you know, as we age, we tend to stop playing with a lot of these movements. And you can even just, think, when was the last time that you were rolling on the ground? And for some of you, it might be every day, but for a lot of us, particularly in our busy lives, we don't get much time to start to play around with these movements, but they're actually vitally important to our health and well-being. And so many of us, as we get older, particularly into our middle and later stages of our life, we forget how to come to the ground. And if we were to take a fall, whether it's playing with our grandchildren or just crossing the street and tripping, how do we organize ourselves to be able to roll over top of ourselves in a way that we come away with just maybe a light scratch versus a broken bone? So these are some of the little things that we begin to play around with and how we organize and orient ourselves in space to become more biologically fit. So please leave a question or comment. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And what are we at? Day 5's tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you then.